We have a massive Winnipeg Jets trade update as a new report has revealed a new Winnipeg Jets trade target, and we got some insight into Kevin Cheveldayoff's trade plans heading to this year's trade deadline, and who could be going back the other way may shock Jets fans. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Hat-Trick HQ and Winnipeg Jets Digest, but before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 72% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel, so if you want to stay up to date with everything that's going on in the NHL and the Winnipeg Jets, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Now, KC, today we have a very interesting report that just dropped. There's a lot flying around, and we've seen the same centers kind of be thrown around to every single team so far heading into this year's trade deadline. But a new target has emerged, and that is Jared McCann from the Seattle Kraken, a very interesting player. I didn't think that, the Seattle Kraken wanted to move off of this player. I didn't even think that he would be on any team's radar so far this season. He has a very interesting contract, which carries to the 2026-27 season with a $5 million AAV. It could make some sense for the Winnipeg Jets. What's your initial reaction to Jared McCann being up for trade?
I like this. I think out of all the center options we've talked about here on the channel, this is the one I like the most. I think Jared McCann is a great two-way forward who leans more offense. He can backtrack and get it done on the defensive end, but he's also a guy who's going to go out there and score you a goal, create a scoring chance for you whenever he has that opportunity. And I think out of everybody like a Ryan O'Reilly or whoever we've talked about a lot of centers at this point, I think Jared McCann is the guy who is the most serviceable and the best bang for your buck you're going to get.
And we've been talking about all season on this channel, on Jets Digest, that the Winnipeg Jets, if they want to compete in the playoffs, not compete, but if they want to be a contender, they have to go out and probably get another center and another depth defenseman. And this is a guy that could be worthwhile going out to get. And of course, Jacob is linking them to the Winnipeg Jets. He says that McCann is a versatile scoring forward, like you mentioned, that can also kill penalties. So this would be a guy that can come in and play in all situations. He can also play center if needed. Again, if the Jets were to trade for this player, it would be for him to play center. And he's only 28. He's $5 million AAV, which the Jets, will get to it, can fit under their cap until the 2026-27 season. So it makes a lot of sense for the Jets. You can see here, this is what the contract is right now. Year 3 of $5 million cap hit. If you look at the Jets cap space so far this season, KC, we have to keep in mind, yes, they have $12.5 million in deadline cap space. So they can add this guy. They can add quite a bit at this year's deadline. But moving forward, especially with a guy with term like Jared McCann, they still have to sign Dylan Samberg. They have to sign Gabe Vilardi, who's having a career year. Dylan Samberg is as well, right? They also have to sign Nikolai Ehlers, right? So you have to keep these things in mind. Yes, the salary cap's going up, but they have to keep these things in mind. What's your take on that? Is Jared McCann still a guy that you would rather come in? Because again, he can play center. He can add a very dynamic piece to your lineup. Would you still bring this guy in knowing that, a lot of salary is going to go out the door next year?
And like you said, he's a center. He can also play wing as well. Big Kev got to make a decision here for the Jets. Do they want to go all in and try to win a Stanley Cup this year? Because if they do, then they're going to have to put the contract thing in the back of their mind and just go out there and get guys that can get it done in the playoffs for this team. So it's a big decision that the Winnipeg Jets need to make, and Jets fans, some might be happy with that, some might be upset with that, but we've seen teams like this in the past, like Chicago. When Chicago was on that big run, they went all in. They lost like Bufflin, they lost eventually Kane and Taves, and they lost a lot of great guys after that season. So, it is sad that you might lose a couple of these guys, but I think you have to go all in if you're the Jets. I mean, the last couple of years, you've had first-round exits, and if I'm Big Kev, I'm saying I'm not making this team be out in the first round again. I need to go out there, get the best players I can to win a Stanley Cup, and I think that's the route they're going to go. I think they're going to go all in here because they have the team. They have probably the best goalie in the NHL, I would go out to say. They have Scheifele, who's having an insane year. Vilardi. A lot of these guys have been breaking out for this team and going out, getting a player who, on the Seattle Kraken, maybe in Jared McCann, hasn't had that as big of experience in the playoffs as some people would like. He's going to be itching to be on a contending team, itching to get into the playoffs. And I think getting a guy like that who's hungry for a cup on your team is only going to help out.
This is a guy, and again, I think if you ask Chicago Blackhawks fans, they do not care about the team's success the last couple of years because you have 3 Stanley Cups in 6 seasons. But, I like that point that you brought up that Jared McCann maybe doesn't have the most experience in the playoffs, and that is something to consider. But I feel like he's a guy who's chomping at the bit to have that experience in the playoffs. And this is from Mark Freitas as well, that, this is a guy that can play in all situations. Maybe they trade Nikolai Ehlers, or maybe they let him walk in free agency. Probably not a good idea. But maybe they, trade Nikolai Ehlers for some other assets that could help the team. You add Jared McCann into the mix, because again, if you look at his stats this season, 42 points in 57 games with a pretty mid Seattle Kraken team. Like, if you added this guy to a high octane offense like the Winnipeg Jets have, this is a guy that's ready to go off. And again, it's not just the offense. He can play a two-way game. He can play on the penalty kill as well. So this is a guy who can be very, very versatile for this Winnipeg Jets team. And I think that it would be a pretty good pickup in that way. And Seattle's on the outside looking into the playoffs, so it does make sense for them to move off of him. If you look at his JFresh chart, pretty good. He's pretty even on both sides of the ice, like offensively, defensively, but we do know what he can do on the offensive side of the puck and what he can add to this team in terms of penalty killing. And again, a lot of this and a lot of the negative stats and analytics that come with a player like this, sometimes you got to chalk it up to the team that they're playing on as well, right? So if you're looking at a guy from Buffalo, for example, not a great team. So I think this could fit in nicely to the Winnipeg Jets lineup. And one guy we've been talking about possibly going the other way to make salary work, even though they don't really need that, but it's something to look forward to, is Cole Perfetti. And so, Casey, I'll throw it over to you again. We've talked about Brock Besser possibly coming into the Jets. A lot of people were okay with Cole Perfetti going the other way. I think that's probably the move that would happen in that case. Obviously, we had a video yesterday where we were moving off of Cole Perfetti again. Would he be the piece to move off of? Could it be Nikolai Ehlers, right? I'm not sure. Seattle could be very interested in that. I'm not sure, but again, he would have to come with a contract extension. But, where do you think that Jared McCann could fit into this lineup, and who do you think goes back the other way?
I mean, if I'm Seattle, at this point, maybe you're trying to get a bit younger, I would say. I mean, they got a lot of guys there who are getting up there, and like Jared McCann, who for the right deal, they will move him out at the deadline. And they got one of the best young prospects in the league in Matty Beniers on that team. So getting a guy like Cole Perfetti, a guy I've been high on for a really long time and have been waiting for him to just have that season, because he has so much skill. He has so much talent to be a great top 6 forward in the NHL. And maybe giving him a new home with a younger team in Seattle could be the breakout Perfetti does need. And I think you take that if you're Winnipeg Jets fans. Like, oh, we're losing one of our top young guys here, but we are bringing in a 28-year-old McCann who is a proven NHL forward, a proven top 6 forward who can go out there, get us points, get it done on the defensive end, and help us out with our penalty kill, because that's going to be big in the playoffs. Because if they don't have a great penalty kill, they're going up against maybe a top offense like the Edmonton Oilers on the power play, and their penalty kill's a little bit weaker, they're just going to get eaten alive. So it would make sense for the Seattle Kraken to go out and get Perfetti, but it also makes sense for the Jets to go out and get McCann as well.
Definitely. I think that it would make sense. And now that this has kind of emerged out of nowhere yesterday, because again, his name was nowhere to be found before yesterday. So now that this has kind of come to the forefront, I think it would make a lot of sense. And even if you move out Perfetti, there's so much you could still do with this lineup. You could put Jared McCann at second line center. Nemestikov moves down. It lengthens the lineup in that way. They do have solid wingers. Even if you don't want to do that, if Perfetti goes the other way and you still have Nikolai Ehlers, then obviously Adam Lowry is in the mix too. He's injured right now, so that's a guy I didn't even mention, and you found some in-house chemistry with Nikolai Ehlers and Lowry this season, so maybe you stick them together. Maybe you put McCann on their wing. There's so much you could do, but I think that going out and making a big splash, like you mentioned, could be good for this team to kind of go all in this season. They've had a great year. They should probably try and capitalize on that in the playoffs as much as possible. But we want to hear what you have to say about possibly acquiring Jared McCann. Could it be Cole Perfetti going the other way? Maybe it's Nikolai Ehlers, right? I think that could be very interesting. Let us know in the comments what you think. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything going on in the NHL.